Today we're going to be talking about economic growth.
Jacqueline Enriquez.
Crystal Rhodes.
And Tara Sawyer.
So we're going to be comparing countries of positive economic growth and negative economic growth. Brazil has a current economic low status. Venezuela is also a low status economic growth, and Switzerland is in comparison, a high economic growth country. So what is economic growth? It's an increase in the amount of goods and services produced per head of the population over a period of time. Economic growth occurs when countries use their resources in a much valuable way that stimulates the economy. It's an important objective because it increases the standard of living and helps to create jobs. A couple of factors would be an increase in the aggregated demand, which is consumer consumption, real wages, value of exchange. These are usually short run, which is more of an inflationary, but the goal is to have a long run aggregated supply change, which would be like investments, labor productivity, and advancement in technology or raw materials, because if there's no rise in aggregated supply and demand, it would just be inflationary and short run. Monetary and physical policies are also policies in set in terms of for economic growth. Monetary policy would be reducing interest rates to stimulate the growth. If we have more money, we'll spend more, so consumer comfortability. Physical policy would be government spending, cutting taxes to boost that economic development. So here's a graph that kind of shows economic or aggregated demand, shift in aggregated supply, and the goal, which would be a long-run aggregated supply shift. Benefits would be increasing income, increasing tax revenue to build school, better health care. It helps create employment, lowers government borrowing, which reduces the debt to GDP ratio. What is GDP? GDP is market value of all final goods and services produced within a country during a specific time period. This is really the preferred way to look at per capita because it determines the welfare and living conditions of a country, and it's measures the value of the output and income.
All right, so a few advantages that each country has. Brazil is one of the fastest growing economies in South America, and they are also the global leader in production of ethanol from sugarcane. Venezuela has a very oil-dependent economy and is also the largest foreign supplier of oil to the U.S. And Switzerland has a strong economy and currency, advanced labor markets, and the natural resources are hydropower, potential timber, and salt. Similarities countries with low economic growth share. Economists say that over time, weak growth can have an insidious effect on a country's prospects in ways not everyone appreciates. Those are just a few examples listed. For instance, less demand for goods, firms will produce less, meaning the rate of unemployment will go up. The table listed basically saying that there's an increase in AD, but LORAS is also increasing. Therefore, there is still a negative output gap, meaning the persistent spare capacity can lead to unemployment. What Switzerland has that other countries don't, and why does it have a great economic growth? The Swiss economy benefits from high levels of flexibility and strength, which include strong protection of property rights and minimum tolerance for corruption. Global trade and investments has enabled Switzerland to become one of the world's most competitive and innovative economies. Labor productivity in each of these countries. Brazil has a very low rate just because there's a poor performance in GDP. Venezuela, the mismanagement of the economy has created a very high inflation rate with collapsing production, and Switzerland overcame the weak growth in the early 1990s, and recently the GDP grew an average of 1.9% a year.
So now we're going to be looking at the inflation rates and consumer prices of each country. We could see that Brazil is currently at 9%, Venezuela at 121.71%, and Switzerland at negative 1.1%. Even though Switzerland is experiencing deflation, the projection for its inflation rate in 2016 is 0.49, so it's improving. So how does inflation rate affect the economy? So it affects in three ways. The high and variable inflation reduces investment. Inflation distorts the information delivered by prices. And high and variable results in less productive use of resources. So growth convergence also has an effect on it. So just like Governor Ratcliffe is in search of gold, increasing his capital, countries are also doing the same thing. So growth convergence is it's a concept that illustrates that countries are trying to reach a level of prosperity through capital and by using diminishing marginal appropriately. So lack of convergence can lead to destruction in the economy and create terrible living conditions. So now we're going to be looking at the economic freedom score, and we can see that Switzerland is at 8.1, Brazil is at 5.5, and Venezuela with the lowest score is at 4.9, which all means that their personal choice is just low for Brazil and Venezuela, and the voluntary exchange coordinated by markets also is affected. Freedom to enter and compete in markets and protection of people and their property from aggression by others. So the reason why Switzerland is superior in all areas because they have a high economic freedom. They actually have a high labor productivity, and these are credits, and we're excited.